Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority, City of Fargo. For everybody on the call and here, if you're going to speak, please make sure you unmute. And if possible, you're visible. And if you're in the audience here, if you're going to speak, please come up adjacent to Joan and I so that you're in the microphone if possible. Thank you. Let's start by approving the minutes of the regular meeting held August 9th. Can you get a motion?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any concerns, comments? None? Call the roll.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to item number 2, approve minutes from meetings held November 23rd, December 14th, and 28th of 21, January 25th, and February 8th of 22. Can I get a motion?
I was just curious, why are we doing that order now? They just got missed, or?
Not missed, but just hadn't gotten done. The last part of the year was extremely busy and then I was gone.
Okay, no, I was just, I was curious as I looked down through it, back to November. Wait, where am I?
You're into job.
Okay, move to approve.
Motion, second, please.
I second.
We have a motion and second. Any conversation? None? Call the roll.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Hagan.
Aye. Moving on to item number 3, approve airport vouchers totaling $153,659.58. Motion, please.
I make a motion.
We have a motion. Can we get a second?
Capitan seconds.
Motion and second. Any conversation, questions? None? Roll call.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Hagan.
Aye. Moving on to item number 4, individual vouchers. A, Terry Stroh, $690. B, Terry Stroh Architects, $852. C, Mead and Hunt, $62,242.53. Item D, Mead and Hunt, $10,388.45. Item E, Mead and Hunt, $4,352.70. Item F, Mead and Hunt, $23,023.70. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion.
And a second?
Capitan seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Questions? None? Call the roll.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Hagan.
Aye. Moving on to item number 5. Review and discuss the North Dakota PHIT health insurance option for 2023. With John Heath, Brian Brown.
Yep. John, are you on there?
I'm here. Can everyone hear me okay?
All right. Thanks for joining us early from Utah.
You bet. No.
Okay, so you're going to share your screen, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
That's okay.
Darren's getting that set up here. John has been, you can explain, John, I guess your relationship with Public Health Insurance Trust. It started out as Hayes Company, now it's called Brown and Brown, but they're the managers of the trust, I guess, administrators.
Yeah, so ultimately, without getting into too much of the backstory, Hayes Companies was ultimately purchased by Brown and Brown, which is a large nationwide insurance brokerage with over 350 offices nationwide. But we do oversee quite a few public trusts similar to this one. So we were hired and we work directly with the Board of Trustees for NDFIT and essentially act as in a consultant role for them. So when you see the name Brown and Brown, we essentially are acting as the consulting arm again for the let me see if it's not allowing me to share my screen, but that's okay. I understand that a lot of you might have some of this information in front of you. And I apologize also, I'm not able to share my video, so I'm having,
We're working on that here, let's
as
see.
we all have experienced a couple, my video is not presenting correctly. But wanted to take the time to talk through some of the adjustments for the increases and renewal information for the trust this year. Hopefully some of you were able to join us for the presentation on for all the trust member groups. At this stage, beginning October 1st, because we have another group of school districts that's coming October 1st. But there's a total of 106 groups, which comprise about 8,000 total members. That includes employees and their dependents. So, of course, your group is one of those, and talking through the different components, again, of the renewal and the increases that all groups are experiencing this year. So we had the opportunity to meet with the Board of Trustees on July 28th, and coming away from that meeting, there were a few foundational changes. One of those being that the third-party actuary that consults, that we work with and consult with for the trust, recommended a four-tier structure in providing the renewals to the membership universally. So it's having one renewal amount. Ultimately, it was a 12.4% amount that was called for in terms of an increase this year. So that was divided among the different member groups based on their loss ratios. So as it stands, the airport authority there happened to fall within the highest bracket, renewal percentage amount of 16.86 in renewal for this year. And I think it is important to create a little bit of information around that. Of course, everyone's sick of hearing that we're in kind of an inflationary environment at the moment, but that is the reality, and much more impacted in terms of medical and pharmacy inflation. So in fact, what we have found is that the median increases nationwide this year are really in the range of about 10 to 11%. So definitely within the realm of what we've expected and seeing in the inflation, the medical and pharmacy trend nationwide. I know that doesn't really do a lot to alleviate seeing that type of a number in a program like this, and it is important to also point out that there are going to be some important enhancements that are a part of the program going into this upcoming plan year. One of those being an employee assistance program that we're recognizing there's a lot of important population health needs of the group as a whole, and making availability of care and services top priority is something that's necessary. That's also something that's going to be rolled out starting January 1st, so you'll get more information on that employee assistance program. And let me see if I am able to share my screen yet. Okay, it looks like we did update that, so I'm going to share this here, and hopefully some of you have seen this again. So if you look down here in the tier rate section, these are your rates as they exist today. So it's the two-tier structure, rates of $510.74 at the individual level, and then for the dependent and family tiers, that goes to $1470.94. So with the 16.8% increase, that makes those rates then $596.85 at the employee-only level, and $1718.94 for the dependent tiers. Another important piece of context here is that really your plan design with the $500 deductible and $2,700 out-of-pocket maximum is essentially a mirror over from the ND PERS plans. And I will point out that the median rates that we see for those mirrored ND PERS plans are $733 at the employee-only level, up to $1,773 for the dependent and family tiers. So even with the increase that you're looking at the moment, it's we do see those quite a bit higher among some of the existing groups that have come over from PERS recently. And in fact, those rates are, again, going up depending upon where those groups fall in those tiers. I think that is an important point for context. And going back to the information about the airport authority there. So again, I had mentioned that the renewals were assigned based on the loss ratio of each individual group. And the reality is we have limited data that we're looking at for the airport authority since it was really just since the beginning of this year that your group came on board and started participating. But for the first 5 months of the year, again, which is what we're looking at, there was a 144% loss ratio, which essentially all that means is for every dollar collected in premium, there's $1.44 that was paid out in medical claims for the group. So, of course, that does fall into the higher range there. And that also does not account for the trends that we have to forecast through the year of 2023, as well as some of the fixed costs that are associated. So that 144% really is just those claims costs. So also important to point out that realistically, the trust is doing its job in that it's subsidizing that cost so that the airport authority is not seeing, a 60% increase in fine costs. So it is providing that benefit of subsidizing that cost. Now, the other thing that we've talked about at length in this process is really the idea that from a foundational level, MDFIT does offer a strategy, some strategy considerations that each group can look at, making individual plan design adjustments that can bring down the premium costs for the group as a whole, and as well as for participants to plan. Some of those changes that we had suggested and was ultimately recommended by was the idea of making adjustments to the out-of-pocket maximum. You've probably heard in the marketplace there's quite a discussion about the idea of increasing. We actually are not proponents of that idea. In fact, we're much bigger proponents of the idea of keeping a richer, low deductible, again with a plan that has co-pays in place, because what we have found is that this allows first dollar coverages so that people can go get care when they need it. Instead of the phenomenon that we see in the high deductible health plans where a lot of people will end up delaying care and just, simply aren't going to the doctor because they realize that they're on the hook for all those costs, starting with office visit copays. So again, when we're looking at some of these strategy options, like I mentioned, the current plan out-of-pocket maximum is $2,700 at the individual level and $5,900 for the options. So you have option one, which would adjust from the $2,700 up to $3,500 for an individual, $7,500 for the dependent tiers. And just for making that one plan design change, that allows for a 0.63% decrease to the rates overall. And correspondingly, if you look at the options down the line, so as an example, if you were to increase that amount to $5,500 at an individual level and $95 for the dependent, that would decrease the overall cost by 3%. So instead of the 16.8%, you'd be looking at an effective 13.5% increase. So I won't belabor that idea too much, but just with the idea that there are several different options that are proposed there, and that can serve to decrease that cost amount to the group for this renewal cycle. So with that, I know that I've talked at length. Of course, want to allow for questions and answers. I'm sure that several of you might have questions about this, but want to open it up for questions at the moment.
Thank you. John, Kaz, any questions?
Yeah, John, I'm just trying to go back when we were looking at all those spreadsheets and everything. In your proposal, did you have the 4 tiers in there for pricing?
That is an option that we can provide. At the moment, we just have this built out to mirror what you've had in place previously. So if that's something that your group wants to take a look at, we can model those out, and I can send those over to Sean, and he can distribute those. But generally, when we make that adjustment, it oftentimes will have an effect of lowering the employee-only cost. And of course, you'll see the middle employee child and children tiers that will be somewhere in between those levels, and then the family tier will increase somewhat.
John,
So,
I think.
but I can certainly make.
I think Mr. Kaiser's question is, when the plan was originally set up, was it set up with the understanding that there would be tiers, multiple tiers for the group, or the group as a whole as one pool, instead of breaking it into 4 different, or segmenting it, or?
I see. Thank you for clarifying that. So, good question. The original, so since the beginning of 2021, so there have been groups that have already renewed, and they were all assigned a renewal across the board. In fact, what we refer to as the round 1 groups, which started January of 2021, they actually all received a 0% renewal increase, meaning they just kept flat rates. So there was not, at that time, it wasn't necessary to divide those up into different tiered portions. But ultimately, based on the feedback from the actuary, it was decided that going forward there would be 4 tiers, and that could look quite a bit different. If the given a 4% increase that had to be assigned, that could be in 1% increments. So maybe 2% to a series of groups, 3%, 4, and 5, or correspondingly less or more depending on the size of the increase. So there are those tiered amounts, but the amounts between the different tiers could.
So John, the quick answer is no, right? You didn't propose it that way. Okay. Part of the benefit that was pitched on this to the employees and to the airport authority was to join a group that had a large number, so we wouldn't have to withstand these increases from experience ratings. How do you just change that 1 year into this process? It feels a little bit like bait and switch.
Well, that's a good question. We ultimately, again, keep in mind that we're not making these decisions for the trust. It's based on the series of your peers that are sitting on the board and making these determinations. Of course, it's based on the feedback from the actuary. So, hailing back to the 1990s, I don't know if any of you recall, but there was a trust program similar to this that was put together and ultimately failed. And I don't know a lot of the detail behind that, but what we've heard is that ultimately the trustees elected not to take some of the advice that was given along the way, and that ultimately collapsed. So that's been highlighted along the way within the Board of Trustees group, just as an example of, hey, we probably need to consider what the actuary is recommending in this circumstance. But, and part of it too is just the fact that, there are widely varying loss ratios within the experience of the different groups. So there is still a component of subsidized. You have the groups that are operating in the 20 to 74% loss ratio range, which truly are having a positive subsidization effect on the groups that are in the higher loss ratio bracket.
No, I understand your tiered approach, but that was one of the main selling points of the trust, was to avoid that, to enter a group with a large number of participants, so the rule of large numbers would kick in, and we wouldn't see these individual adjustments based on loss ratio, but here we are. And the part that really concerns me is we're trying to solve it on the backs of the employees, which is absolutely not fair. They didn't do anything here. This was a plan that we brought to the table. This is a plan we approved. This is a plan you guys pitched to us. And when I looked, the first thing we do is start reducing benefits to employees, and I just don't like that. I don't think that's the way to approach this. I think we need to find a better way to understand why these costs are increasing. You did compare it also to PERS. Do you have those rates directly, or is this just anecdotal evidence that you have?
Oh yeah, we definitely have access to those rates. So a high percentage of the groups that came in round one were mirrored over from the existing PERS plan, which included their rates. So in fact, those groups that initially came in at a decrease to those PERS rates at the time. And like I mentioned, last year they did receive a 0% increase on top of that. So even though they're in this third renewal cycle, they're getting a proportional increase. If you average that out over those 3 years, those groups are really operating anywhere from 2 to 5% over that period.
Well, I just find it very disappointed in the first year, and again, we're going to be asked the question here: how do we deal with a 16-17% increase? Quite frankly, I'm not very likely to do it on the backs of the employees. We have a promised benefit to them in the package we put in front of them, and to start reducing it is not what we want to do in this labor market.
Sure, I get the position that you're in. I will go back to the idea that, again, it's a self-funded plan, which means, these rates are dictated by the experience of the individual groups. And, the reality is that with that loss ratio amount, those claim amounts, that is the group's experience at the moment. And so if you were in a traditional fully insured type program, you would be looking at most likely about a 60 to 70% increase.
Say that again, the amount?
Would coincide with the loss ratio.
60 to 70%.
60 to 70.
So again, with a loss ratio of 144% and forecasting for medical inflation and trend over the upcoming period plus fixed costs.
But John, that was the benefit. John, that was the benefit of joining the trust, is to not be dealing with a small group of people where 1 or 2 claims can have a dramatic effect on the loss ratio. And that's not the benefit we're seeing, and it's not the benefit we're seeing going forward if you're going to adjust these things. When you do the loss ratio, do you drop everything? Is it just 12-month period, or is it rolling?
What I'm saying is, the claims are the claims. There's no, because this is a self-funded trust, there's no additional fluff in terms of carrier margins. The claim amounts are the claim amounts, meaning, when the overall trust calls for a 12.4% increase, that it's not like that by a carrier margin or a profit margin, something like that. All the premiums into the trust go to fund medical claims, and if the money is not there, then the claims can't get paid. It's not like there's additional fluff in there that can be that we have the ability to turn around and say,
No, John, what I'm saying though is we entered this plan without tiered pricing, and our first year in, we're into tiered pricing based on experiences.
Yep.
That doesn't seem fair.
And I get that idea, that reality of the program is that decisions are made at the trustee level. We of course counsel closely with the trustees, and and they make determinations based on recommendations that are brought forward to them. And that was something that they voted on as an adjustment that made sense in terms of creating a way that was the most fair for all the trust member groups and to make it sustainable, again, for all the groups across the board. So to your point, there is still a subsidization effect, but yeah, the reality is instead of a 12.4% increase across the board, some groups are getting more than that, some less than that.
And your experience ratio, John, how do you calculate that? Your loss ratio, is it 12 months and cut off, or does it roll?
Well, that's based on, again, we have very limited data coming into this because it's based on medical claims that have been paid out just over.
No, John, it's a simple question. It's a simple question. When you calculate the payout ratio, do you take 12 months and add them together, or do you do a rolling average or some type of weighting? There's normally a weighting component. Again, the challenge is that we're looking at your experience prior to joining the trust. And again, it's a little bit part of the overall city plan prior. But we did look at a 24-month period and assigned a different weight to those. So you knew this was going to happen going in? Because you looked at the historical?
In fairness, what I'd like to do, provide more underlying information. If you'd like me as a follow-up to, address specifics about all the underwriting factors, I can get that over to you. I do, in fairness to the group, we ought to allow for, general questions and discussion around the renewal increase this year. But again, as a takeaway, I'm happy to provide much more detailed information if you'd like.
John, this is Rick. One of the questions or one of the statements made was the first re-enrollees this year had no increase. Is that correct?
That was the renewal period for round one for the plan year 2022. So the groups that started in January of 2021 came in at a decrease to their existing rates at the time, and then they renewed toward the end of last year with a 0% flat increase for the plan year of 2022.
And that was not experience loss related adjustment then? That was just the pool as a whole?
That was the pool as a whole, yep.
So yeah.
Well, it's so, Kaz, I guess the question is, going forward, that class or that group that had the zero adjustment was prior to the tiering effect that you put in place, and going forward, all groups will adhere to the tiering going forward?
As it stands right now, again, that could adjust if the trustees deem a change necessary, but most likely it will be within that same tiered structure based on that.
How are they able to change back and forth, I guess that confuses me. I guess that's not a consistent action of a trustee of a pool.
I'm not suggesting that will be the case. I'm just saying that could be. Brown and Brown does not make that determination. That's ultimately decided by the trustees who are in charge of the program.
So our experience rating going forward is going to be a rolling average, and we don't know what the weights are from the previous years. So even this year with our high loss ratio, that's going to continue to roll forward on our rates for the next how many periods till it rolls out?
Well, of course, for the upcoming renewal period, it would be readdressed. And I mean, to your point, that it's very much cyclical, meaning one group red one year and then very much in the green the next. So we see that among a lot of our trust groups is that, that can adjust drastically from one year to the next. And
John, what I'm trying to understand.
One individual within the plan that leaves the plan, that individual could be a high-cost claimant.
John, what I'm trying to understand though is we entered into a plan with a trust to get into a group with a large number of people so we could be dealing with, theory of large numbers. And now unilaterally, the trustees say, you know what? You entered on that basis, that's what we sold you, but we've decided since it didn't really work out real well, we're going into a tiered plan. That's not what we bought. And the fact that you're now saying this can bounce back and forth and some participants are not on the tiered plan and may not be on the tiered plan going forward, I don't know how you're gonna keep this thing together.
Who are the trustees of this plan in the state?
I think it might be best, and you'll have to apologize, or excuse me, I'm not sure who's speaking, but I think it'd be good to, to get to the core of your questions, but I don't know that this is the forum to get to that. We can certainly set up a follow-up discussion and share more detail around that.
Well, John, don't we have to renew here by September?
I thought it was August 26th. John, what is the deadline?
Yes, we're looking for decisions regarding adjustments to the plan design by August 26th.
Has any other participant in the plan had the same concerns we're raising?
Well, that's a loaded question. Obviously, people are wondering where the adjustment to the renewal strategy came from. I don't have been quite as much concern, I guess, among other groups. All of the groups, get the idea that it makes sense to have a division among the renewal amounts.
John, this is Sean. I think when my understanding is, and I had sent you the information we got from Pro Resources, who is our professional employment organization. They do payroll, benefits, and
Yes.
HR. They've presented us with an option that they have as well. Of course, they don't have their numbers for 2023, but my understanding is that they would look at the loss history and we could be subject to a pretty substantial increase even if we went with a different plan. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. I mean, anytime you make a carrier shift, whether that, and my understanding was that option was available through Medica, but yes, they would take a look at the loss rate of the group, and I'm not sure how they handle their pooling, or if they would pool you with other groups, or have you individually rated as a group. But again, your group's experience is your group's experience, and certainly you can assign rates based on that.
We get a short time. I first got the communication from you on August 5th, and of course it was too late for our previous board meeting. Now we have this one, and of course we have to make a decision by August 26th. It doesn't give us a lot of time. And for the board members to have their questions and stuff, I have the same concerns that Mr. Cosgriff has, in that this isn't the plan that we purchased. I do think though long term, my hopes are is this is in our best interest long term. Just in the short term here, it's this is a little bit painful to go through, but if we renew as it is with the 16%, I don't think there's any appetite from our board to increase the employees out of pocket. That's the last thing that we want to do, as we're struggling to keep employees. So really the only option that we have if we want to keep everything the same for the employees is to renew at the 16.86% increase, which is a little steep. But it could be steeper if we don't do
the other thing that I will point out, and thank you for bringing up those points, Sean. I appreciate that background. Again, this goes back to the idea of we're not suggesting an overall universal adjustment to deductible. Keep in mind that the out-of-pocket maximum, when we're talking about that element of plan design, generally there's less than 10 to 15% of any group's membership that end up meeting that number on an annual basis. So for context, with your current plan design, it would take $11,500 in total medical claims throughout the year in order to meet that out of pocket. So that accounts for $500 in the deductible, and then the 20% co-insurance for the additional $2,200. So yeah, within your group's experience, the top 4 claimants actually accounted for 80% of the total paid claims for the group. So meaning the remaining, and when I say members, that refers to both employees as well as dependents. So the remaining 29 members, or 88% of the population, accounted for less than 20% of the plan spend and didn't come anywhere near the out-of-pocket maximum. So that is relevant when you're considering those adjustments, because the vast majority of individuals are not approaching that out-of-pocket maximum on an annual basis. But that could encourage somebody within the plan that is incurring a lot of those claims to maybe look at another option, whether that be maybe that individual is older than 65 and may want to look at a medical. They have a better option available to them with a spouse's plan. Again, the intent here is not to be punitive to anyone, but we're simply suggesting that one adjustment to plan design can benefit the entire population with lower premiums, and oftentimes has the effect of lowering the overall experience for the group. So an important part of that is we want to ensure that those high-cost claimants do have access to the service they need, and that's why the trustees are working on additional health programs that are going to be relevant to address those conditions and diseases that are driving a lot of the costs there. But in the meantime, there are true strategies that can have an impact both in the short term and in the long-term experience of the group.
So what's the desire of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I can't express how disappointed I am in this whole process, but this is a mistake that the board made. We made the changes. This is not something that I would support, that the employees take any part of this. And John, your explanation of, hey, it only maybe is going to hurt a few people. If we hurt one employee, that's too much. And so that really disappointed me to even hear you say that don't worry, it's only a couple people. Well, I'm not in favor of putting a financial hardship on anybody. So if we're going to renew this, the renewal has to be on us. I just can't support anything that we would do to change the employees' benefits under this. And we're going to have to look at this very, very carefully going forward. And I know, Rick, you don't want to do another study, but this type of increase with this major change unilaterally made in the plan, to me, almost disqualifies this. And so going forward, I really think we have to take a hard look at it. So, Sean, it may be in the long term that they'll get their act together, but this is going to impact us, and you're hearing the answers now, and he wants to defer to underwriters and everything else. This is going to affect us because it's going to roll forward, and they're going to continue to do this. So,
John, on the call, did the trustees of the plan make a public communication to all plan members and their groups that this tier change was happening? And if so, when?
Yeah, so that vote was taken on July 28th, and it was the beginning of the following week that the information was communicated out. So yeah, it was communicated out as soon as possible following that meeting. But yeah, that came in the form of the communication that first the groups.
I think the first I saw was August 5th, I believe. I don't recall seeing anything from.
Yeah. I mean, July 28th to August 5th is basically the time frame.
So
between determination and communication.
Do we have a list of the trustees?
It's online. I can get it. I'm trying to remember the head of the Public Health Insurance Trust, his last name starts with a Q, is that correct?
Brendan Quintus, yes, he's the CEO of the North Dakota Insurance.
So maybe we can get him at our next meeting, or,
Well, in the meantime, though, we do have to provide a benefit to those employees. I think item 5 and 6 together accommodate some relief for the employees as well. And so I guess what my big concern about this is the tier change was not made. If it was just sent in an email, that's really not what you do when you're making a change to a pool. You're slicing up the pie. That's not how you go about it, and that's not fair to those employers that are participating in any sort. That to me is a concern, and I would like to as well visit with the trustees about the rationale and how they came to that decision for the benefit of our employees as well. But we do need to act on this as it sits today.
Do we have an opportunity to have a presentation or an option through Pro Resources?
we do, but it's going to be some time before they have their 2023 rates. I mean, we could just out of curiosity, what they'll do is they'll request permission to get the loss history, they'll run it through their plans and we'll see what it, I mean, there's no harm in doing that. We can, but it's gonna be after this decision.
Because if we approve this prior to August 26th, then we eliminate the option of Pro Resources
That's correct,
for another year or
yes,
for 1 year.
yes. But we could still see what it might cost if they're willing to do that. I'd be curious to know what it's gonna cost.
The one thing that John said that, I mean, many things trouble me, but that people should just go to their spouse's plan because we don't have enough coverage to, I mean, that's not an option for a lot of people. And that shouldn't be the choice.
So I guess what I'd like to have is a motion at this time to accept this increase, but quarterly monitoring at least of what they're doing and a conversation with the trustees about the rationale. Their way they went about it as a public plan was not very professional in my mind.
And the very short window of time that we have.
Yes, Jim?
Yeah, I agree with John. This thing stinks of a bait and switch deal to me. And if we do approve it temporarily, I think that the authorities should have to pick up the tab and not the employees. But I'm finding it hard pressed to even support this proposal as it exists.
I don't know what those percentages will be, but just to clarify, as I know on the next item, which was related to this, so we were talking about going 75-25 to 80-20. Currently, our single insurance employees are paying 14%, and the airport authority is picking up 86%. That's a holdover from before. And on the family plans, or employee plus one or more, is 75-25. It would be that one that I would propose going to 80-20 and keeping the single plan at the 14%, 86% spread. But then we're gonna have to back calculate a little bit more, so it might be an odd percentage if we want to hold the employees to the current amount that they have, which is $71.50 per pay period, Joan, for a single plan.
That's for the month.
For the month, $71.50 per month on a single plan and $370.24 per month on a family plan. If you wanna hold those amounts steady, then we'll figure out what the percentages are. It might be 82, something different, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we don't want the employees to pay any more. I mean, I'm in 100% agreement with that.
So if we approve this, it would only be for a quarter that we would
No,
be.
it's for the whole year.
It's for the whole year.
It's for the whole year, starting January 1st.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. How many people are on the individual plan and how many people are on the family plan?
We currently have 15 on the individual plan and 6 on the family plan, but we do have a couple of employees that have left, a couple more that are coming on, so what that's gonna be, I guess we won't know until we bring our new employees on board. That's a later discussion on the agenda here. So it's right around, out of the 28 employees, it's about 21 are taking advantage of the insurance.
So one person would be $71 a month, and then if you just add a spouse, then it bumps to $371.
24.
Spouse independence.
My apologies for the introduction. Thanks everyone for taking the time with us today. Again, let me know if there's additional strategy or follow-up discussion that you'd like us to accommodate. I have to step off this for another meeting, but appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, John.
Take care.
Mr. Chairman, given, excuse me, given the short time period, about all we could do is ask them to bind coverage for a month and see if Pro Resources would come in with something. I don't believe they would do that.
I don't think so.
You're saying that it's an annual, you're into a contract.
Yeah. But the whole thing is just so poorly handled to make a major plan decision at the end of July and be slapping renewals in front of people with no opportunity to change. And they know that. Is really, really disingenuous. And more concerning is the group that didn't take the increase, that had no increase, that were their early adopters, and I'm wondering if they made deals with them that said, you know, you come on with us early and we won't force any increases with you. I mean, the whole thing just, it looks bad from this side. Now, there may be lots of reasons that they would offer for it.
Well, I think the question too is renewal date of that group. And is there experience rating from prior groups or groups that are in this that have a longer experience rating too? There's a lot of questions that we would like to ask the trustees, I think, and find out more mechanics about the plan. But in the meantime, we do have to provide coverage and some continuity for the employees.
Yeah, I didn't know the employees should not have to bear any part of this,
But the way that it was handled really leaves us with no options at all,
no.
the timeframe.
And by the
So,
way,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So if we pick up the tab for the increase, how many times can we do that? You know, if we say, yeah, we'll just pick up the tab on the renewal, don't worry about it, we got it this year, however much it's going to be, are we going to do that same thing next year and the year after that? I think that the disappointment is with the trustees. I think we have a conversation with the trustees and say, get your stuff together with doing this, or we're going to find other means. But we do have to have a long-term strategy how to fix this. And the other thing I was going to say is August 26th is an artificial date that they put on us. You know, and this is a renewal for starting in January. I mean, do we have to have a decision for them on August 26th, which is 3 days from now?
Yes.
Or do we just explore other options and then tell them when we're ready to sell it? No, we're not going to play by your timeline that you imposed on us artificially. But
No, it is August 26th, that is firm. And I have a fear that our other options are going to be far more expensive just because of the loss history. That's my fear. The other thing in answer to your question as far as changing the employee percentages, I foresee the day in the very near future where we're going to be paying 100% of the health insurance costs to stay competitive in the market. It's already happening. Employers are paying 100%, and I don't think we're too far away from that.
so would it be appropriate to table and a vote on 5 and visit about 6 and put the two of them together in a motion? Is that, is there an appetite for that?
Well, certainly, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to adjust our participation in whatever healthcare plan to provide the same level of benefits at the same participation rate for the current employees and going forward.
So could I just?
Go ahead, no, go
So
ahead.
You
if
can
you
make
want
that
to
easier
freeze
to
it
work
at
with.
7150 in the single plan and 370.24 in the family plan.
Sean, what I'd like to do is leave it open to you, because you might have some small percentages moving around, and, you know, we don't have to have even numbers, so just whatever keeps the employee share the same with the same existing benefits that they currently have, we would make that adjustment.
So the motion is to keep the current cost to the employees, as it was in the
That's
prior
probably
year.
the easier way.
For the next calendar year. And MA absorb any difference in cost of the plan.
Yep,
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And same level of benefits
Yeah.
too. that we would-
With same level of benefits or greater.
Yeah, or greater.
And that plan didn't really change, so you have that before you in the option, so that'll be the same, right?
From my understanding, there are some ancillary benefits that are coming online, some counseling.
Yeah, which Pro already provides, but I've got some other information from Pro here as well for next year, which is good news, so.
So we have a motion. Can I get a second?
Can you repeat your motion?
Basically, we're just saying that the employees' out of pocket for health insurance stays the same, with the same or better coverage in this next year.
Their premium
For
rate,
this year.
their premium rate and deductibles and out-of-pocket stays the same.
Right.
I second John's motion.
Any questions, conversation of John's motion?
And I do agree going
I have a
forward.
question.
Go ahead, Eric.
How much is this gonna cost? I have a problem voting for a motion when you're just like, we'll just cover whatever it is, and there's no math behind it.
I'd have to do some calculations, but it'll take me a little bit after the meeting to get that calculated, but
The bottom there.
Eric,
yeah, at the
if
bottom, he's got
you take
14.
20% above what we were paying last year, that's
Safe.
safe.
the number is on the handout. Option 1, which is basically keep it the same, that's a decrease. He does quantify it on one of these just based on our current employees, so 15 single and 6 family. The number, I'm just not seeing it right now.
6,700? No, that's option 3.
Combined monthly premium.
And it shows the current annual premium and what the option.
That's what option 1. So it looks like it's,
Sorry to be stubborn on this, but we just have a fiduciary responsibility to run the business as well, and I don't want somebody to just look at this and say, hey, you're just making willy-nilly decisions without any fiduciary look at what you're doing. So I just want it's a housekeeping thing more than anything.
Eric, I think we're doing haphazard instead of willy-nilly.
yeah, I don't have a calculator here. 31.
Cuts off there.
It's like 231, 196 versus 197, 840.
And the good news is it's 21 plans, not,
Yeah, 500.
yeah.
Is it under $5,000?
No.
That's right, I don't know, I'm just looking at the bottoms on here, 231,196 total cost versus 197,840. So $33,356 total, but then the employee has a portion of that, so.
Yeah.
Am I looking at that correctly? That's what I'm looking at here. So overall, it's $33,356, that's all in, but some of that is gonna be picked up by the employee, and the rest by the employer. I suppose we're looking at roughly about $30,000 here.
their cost is about overall, right?
Yeah.
That's the, okay.
It is what it is. So,
Eric, any other questions?
No questions for me, sir.
Jim? Mr. Capitan?
No questions,
Mr. Cosner?
no questions.
Paula?
No, I just wanna comment that I just think that this company is dealing with this in bad faith, and I hope we can find another option going forward.
Well, this is a
The
North
trust.
Dakota trust.
The
It's a
trust.
North Dakota
Yeah.
Employees Trust. So.
I mean, the timeline.
gotcha.
So having said that, no other discussion, we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call,
Cosgriff,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Engen.
aye. Move to number 6, discuss amended employer-employee share.
I guess that's gonna change based on your action today, so it might not be a perfect 80-20, but the idea would be to change the family plan to at least 80-20 versus 75-25. And like you say, with the tweaks you make today and the final cost, it could be at 82% to,
To keep the numbers
18%, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so could I get a motion here to keep with respect to the ratio, obviously not exactly 80-20, but the numbers concurrent with the premiums concurrent and benefits concurrent prior. This is specifically family plan.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I second.
We have a motion and second. I will say we spend several hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on many things, and the fact that we're spending them on employees, no matter what the cost, is a good investment. So please keep that in mind. Any other questions, concerns? None, roll call.
Cosgriff,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Engen.
Aye.
Got one more thing just on Pro Resources. What we do know from Pro going into 2023 is on our dental, all rates are staying as is, no increase, no benefit changes in dental. On the vision plan, they're gonna enhance, add a second pair rider to the policy, allowing employees to get 2 pairs of glasses or glasses and contacts in the same calendar year. The rate for vision insurance is decreasing by 7%. Voluntary life and group life, there's no change to the current premium to the employee. Short-term and long-term disability, the pricing is going to decrease. Short-term disability is going to decrease by 10%. Long-term disability insurance will decrease by 20%. And on supplemental products that they have provided to our employees, no benefit or price changes for 2023. So there is some things going down in price, very few.
Moving on to number 7, authorize attendance at the GLC AAAE Airport Conference.
Okay, Jordan and Andrew have been asked to present at that conference. It's for the Great Lakes chapter of AAAE, so they'll be attending.
Motion, please.
I make a motion.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any questions, conversation? None? Roll call.
Cosgriff,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Engen.
Aye. Moving on to number 8, receive change order from J-Tech, Eastside Terminal Pathogen Mitigation Project.
Okay, you got email from Steve Heppner from CMTA that while they were installing some ductwork in one of the spaces with inspectors, they found an old plaster ceiling above the lay-in ceiling, and they're making some modifications to that to get the ductwork to fit, and their cost is $2,213.20. I request your approval.
I make a motion.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Motion, second. Any other questions, conversation? Roll call.
Cosgriff,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Engen.
Aye. Moving on to number 9, receive communication from SP Plus regarding 2023 budget.
Okay, Mr. Pearson is on, correct? Greg, are you still there?
Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, all right, and I don't know if you're gonna share your screen here, I think Darren will get that set up.
Yes, yeah, I'll share my screen. For the second half of this item, the first half of the item refers to a contract that we have in place currently that extends through December of 2023. And in that contract, we also have an amendment that we entered into in July of 2020, at which time we converted from a lease agreement to a management agreement. And as part of that management agreement, we went from a revenue share to a fixed rate. And in that amendment, it called for revisiting the agreement once a year to determine if we were going to remain under a lease agreement or continue as a management agreement. Sean and I met, we decided to continue again as a management agreement for another year. And so that's what's been brought before you today. The budget was provided ahead of time, and then it's just a continuation as a management agreement for another year, keeping in mind again that the agreement goes through December of 2023. So all is in order and approval is recommended.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, we amended this during COVID, right? Is that?
Yeah, July 1st of 2020, we changed from a concessionary agreement to a management agreement,
Okay.
as they did with all the airports in the country.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Right. Have you received any payments, COVID payments, any assistance from the government during this time period?
No, we didn't receive any direct payments from the government, any PPP or anything of that nature. The only relief we did receive was modifications to agreements with other airports. And we also did receive some credit dollars from a couple of airports as well.
Okay. So you're a large business, you didn't receive PPP or any of the other benefits?
No, we had to actually fill out a questionnaire, if you will, from airports to see if we qualified. That did not eliminate us, but as part of that questionnaire, we had to respond accordingly. We did not receive any of those dollars directly from the government.
Your question is timely, and we didn't have this in time for the agenda, but you will pass a resolution at your next meeting for the distribution of COVID-related concession relief funds that the Airport Authority did get. We had two separate grants. One was for $102,970. The other grant was for $411,879. And in the first grant, yes, SP Plus will receive a proportionate share of that $102,000. It'll be a little over almost $82,000 that they'll receive through the Airport Authority as part of that concession relief. We just had Brian Page from Mead & Hunt and the FAA just agreed on our distribution methodology just in the last week or so. But that'll be distributed to you before. So Greg, that's probably breaking news for you, but there is some.
It's great news.
But Sean, that is not them going and requesting PPP or direct grant money.
No.
This is reciprocating dollars as a concessionaire of the airport.
And we have certifications from all of our tenants as far as how they receive PPP loans and what they used it for. If it was used for rent or for payroll, and we've got that distribution there that you'll get.
Yeah, it's just been interesting to see how it all circles around. When's the last time this was out for bids, competitive bids?
Just a couple years
was it a
ago,
couple
just
years
prior
ago?
to COVID, yes. And we picked them for was it a 10-year term? Then it changed
Yeah, I
of course
wanna
with
say,
COVID.
yeah.
Yeah, we took formal proposals and have only had, I think, a couple respond to the proposals just a couple years ago.
And the grant money we're gonna approve, that's just lowering our share of what we're paying them, or is
So
it in addition to what we're paying?
No, this is what they're currently paying us. So how it will work is that when we pass the resolution, starting October 1st, each tenant will submit their monthly report, but they won't pay us until they are credited for the amount that they're set to receive. Once we get the reports, then we upload a document in Delphi to the FAA to get reimbursed. So they don't get a check directly, they just get credited for whatever they receive, whatever they would pay the airport for the month until they attain what the FAA is.
And it doesn't change the payment to them, it's just the source of the payment is.
Their obligation to us is the same.
Yep, they still pay us the same, it's just, they actually won't write us a check. Like for the restaurant, it's gonna take them over a year. They won't pay us anything for a year,
That's okay.
but big
Get
numbers.
them back on their feet. Good. Can I get a motion to accept the,
This is for an annual renewal?
No, this is just for the 2023 budget.
Okay, 20.
Yes.
Yep.
Which,
And if I could just add one thing real quick, under the new management agreement that we entered into in 2020, each year the airport has actually received provided, based off the number of employments, more income as opposed to the lease agreement. Again, the lease agreement was based off of revenue share. And so just this most recent year, 2021, it was 2.6 in revenue, based off of a lower employment count. So what it does with SP Plus, so it does mitigate our risk in case we were to, succumb to another pandemic or things of that nature. So it's a win-win for both sides, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the only risk factor that Sean had originally voiced was if we get a really bad winter or something like that, and our costs for snow removal and such go substantially higher. That was a mitigating factor, correct, Sean?
it is, yeah, snow removal is a moving target, so you plan for, 8 to 11 events a year, and then of course, it snows every weekend, so we try and average that out, but it's usually 8 to 11 major events a year.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue the management agreement with SP Plus.
can I get a second?
I second. Jim can do it.
Multiple seconds. Thank you, Jim.
It's actually not to continue it, it's actually to approve their budget for 2023, which is effective July 1 of this year through June 30 of next year.
Would you like to amend that, Eric?
I will amend that to so moved. How about that?
Perfect, thank you. All right, we have a motion and Paula second is amended as well. Good. Any questions, additional comments? None? Roll call.
Cosgrove,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Engen.
Aye.
Second part is the fee adjustment proposal, so he's got the parking rate survey, which they, every 6 months or a quarter, they're constantly monitoring rates. He has a recommendation for an increase in our parking rates. Go ahead, Greg.
Thanks a lot, Sean. Is everybody on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, as Sean mentioned, we're constantly looking at rates in the market, and obviously coming out of the pandemic, it's been a very fluid situation with parking being at a premium as of late, with the return of passengers at the rate that they're returning. So we looked at a total of 13 airports and surveyed 13 airports, and I pointed out the two outliers, if you will. Wichita, Kansas, which has some of the higher rates out of the survey, which is highlighted here. And then also Idaho Falls, just because they also have 2 economy parking lots, similar to what you'll have in short order with Economy East coming online. The difference between all of these that we surveyed, because we wanted to make sure we stayed in a certain region, obviously, and also looked at airports of comparable size as well. But the main difference between all of these is the fact that you actually have dynamic pricing at your location. And so that actually helps and assists with your ceiling of what you can raise your drive-up rates to. And the way dynamic pricing works, just for those that may not know, is it's similar to how the airlines do their reservations for their tickets. They look at capacity, they look at demand, and they look at how far out you book. And based off of that, they can offer you a lesser rate up to a certain point. And as that capacity reaches its peak, if you will, or as you reach your maximum capacity, that discount, that rate gets closer to the actual drive-up or turn-up rate. And so that's the same way dynamic pricing works at your facility for your 3 lots, short-term, long-term, and economy. And so because you have that, it offers the ability for you to actually increase your drive-up rate, but still maintain some of your older rates that you're leaving behind. Just because if you make a reservation, those rates will still be available to those people that reserve ahead of time. And so the biggest takeaway and overall summary is that your economy lot and your long-term lot is due for a rate increase. And if you look at the summary page here, it shows a $3 increase for each lot. So economy would go from $6 to $9. Long-term would go from $8 to $11. And again, for those individuals that are accustomed to paying $6 and $8 respectively, they still have that option through going online, making a reservation, and doing that ahead of time. And obviously the outreach and making sure that they're aware of that is key. And then we're working with MAG airports if you decide to adopt a rate increase of any size, whether it's $3 or less, to make sure that the passengers are aware of this increase. And keep in mind, we do a transportation study twice a year for you guys. We just presented on that about a month ago or so. That's another opportunity for us to make sure that we educate the traveling passengers about the ability to get that lesser rate, if you will. But if we analyze this out and look at it from a revenue standpoint, currently you're looking at an average length of stay of 4 days, which remains the same based off the analysis. The biggest difference is total revenue that will be calculated if you decide to adopt a $3 increase for your July. And I failed to mention that short term, the consensus was to keep that at $18, just as you have it set already. The percent of revenue increase is 38%. And then the revenue change for this period that was surveyed, the 30-day period from April 18th to May 18th. So you're looking at an $86,000, $709 increase. And then over the year, you're looking at $1,040,508 increase if we annualize this over the entire 12-month period. Now, obviously, there's some assumptions built into this. One being that you have the same amount of passengers from this survey period of April 18th to May 18th coming throughout the airport each month, which obviously that's going to be fluid. But it still gives you an idea of the increase you can look at from a revenue standpoint with respect to a $3 increase. And this is just the long-term life that we analyzed and looked at for this map right here, but obviously it's being proposed for the economy life as well. And keep in mind, based off the management agreement that you just agreed to continue, we do not benefit from any of that increase of the rate. That money comes straight back to the airport, if you will. So that's, again, the benefit of the management agreement that you just agreed and approved to continue on with. So that's a summary of it. This just shows pretty much the break-even point. Even if you had a 25% demand loss of passengers that said, okay, I'm not going to park, you still would be making the same amount that you are currently making for the long-term life based off $3 rate increase. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that here, that you could succumb to a 25% loss of demand and still break even based off of your current revenue that you're making today off the long-term life. So again, the short-term life was that's increased about approximately 7 years ago. At that time, the economy and long-term was not increased. And so it's definitely, warrants an increase of some magnitude. But we are proposing a $3 increase respectively for each of those lots. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Gregory, there was one airport that I noticed that wasn't on your survey, and that was Grand Forks. Grand Forks has $10 a day for their lot that's closest to the terminal. And then they offer a deal. If you stay for a whole week, you get $60 a week. So you save $10. Their lot that's a little bit further back is $8 a day.
Okay. And we still would keep the weekly rates incorporated to where if you stay for a week, we essentially charge you for 6 days. And that's currently how it calculates right now.
Okay.
For each lot. So yeah, we would be in alignment with that.
So Greg, this is Sean. If the board were to approve this, when would it be effective?
We would need to give our partners about a 30-day notice. So ideally, we could have this in place the latter part of September. But if we wanted to just start on a clean month, we could start October 1. But pretty much we could stand it up within about a 3 to 4 week time period if it's the will of the board. And the good news is we would have a cutoff point. So if you pulled your ticket before it was implemented and you exited the lot, you would still be paying the previous rates. And if you pulled your ticket after that starting point, you would then be paying the new adjusted rates.
I guess this is Rick, the chair. I'm concerned our short-term rate is too low. think we could go to $20 a day and it wouldn't affect those parkers. That's just $2. And
We considered that, but we also factored in the recent transportation study that we did. And when we inquired about that, granted, we put the caveat, would you pay $20 per day to park in a garage? It was an astounding, it was about 70% said no, they wouldn't. Now, obviously that was a 2-day period, and you know, it's not going to be the consensus of everybody, but that kind of played into also, not solely, but it also contributed to our decision to keep it at 18. But again, parking is at a premium right now, particularly at airports. So, you know, it's definitely something that can be on the table.
well, I think it's something we can start tempering those people to get used to paying a little more to park close, or at some point maybe in a garage. They're gonna pay more for it, and this is a good time to start that process.
Sure.
But Gregory, you're saying keep the
Chairman.
18 at the same price, the short term, not increase the short term.
That was our recommendation at this time, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. What is the rate going to be on the new East Economy lot?
It's going to mirror the rate of the current economy lot, which is currently $6.
Okay,
But if you chose to increase it, it would go to 9.
raising the 9. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd recommend that you'd approve his request effective October 1st and then give consideration to changing the short term from 18 to 20. That's,
I guess I'd like to see a motion where we take the economy and long-term rates up to their recommendation, but the short-term we move to 20. Can I get a motion?
Chairman, I will make a motion to, I kind of want to leave the long-term lot the way it is at 18 and see if we can adjust it at a later date. I kind of want to go with SP Plus's recommendation, as they are the experts in the area and they gave us their expert opinion. So I would like to kind of follow their expert opinion. And if we want to raise it at a later date, we can do so. Haphazardly, right, Mr. Cosgrove?
No, willy-nilly.
I would like to make a motion to approve the recommendations from SP Plus on the short term and the,
economy.
what was the other lot?
Economy.
Economy, raising them $3. Economy, thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's my motion.
It's the
Yeah,
long term
okay.
and the economy. Sorry.
Okay. Raising them $3 and leaving the long-term lot at 18.
Short term.
The short term lot at 18.
Temperature adjusted.
All right.
So,
10 seconds.
so we have a motion and a second for the current recommended SP Plus rate change.
Would there, Mr. Chairman, would there be any consideration of a $19 rate? Because I am with you to just slowly move it along.
I would love that $1 is $1.
The buck's a buck.
Well, and the rationale is at some point, if we do evolve to having a ramp, that rate is gonna be higher. And short-term parking is at a premium, and let the traveling public pay a little bit of a premium to be close to the terminal.
No, and there is an argument that can be made that while we're raising rates, I mean, you go ahead and raise them for all three. If you would like us to take that back and look at it a little closer, we can do that. Again, the benefit is that you have dynamic pricing at your airport, which a lot of airports don't have. And so the ceiling on the drop-up rate, which is what we're looking at and discussing today, is much higher, or can be much higher at your airport as opposed to airports that don't have the ability to flex pricing when you do a reservation. So saying all that to say, your point's well taken, and if you so wish, we can definitely look at it a little closer and make another recommendation on short term. But $1, I don't think would hurt anything as well.
Eric, would you amend your motion to accommodate Mr. Cosgrove's $19 short-term rate?
Of course I will. $19 on the short-term rate is, will amend my motion. That's why I don't ever make motions, because they get so messy.
And would the second agree to that amendment?
Jim?
Jim, would you agree to amend your second to accommodate?
Yes.
All right. We have an amended motion and second to accommodate SP Plus's rates for economy and long-term and a $19 rate for short-term. Is that correct? All right. Any other conversation? None? Roll call.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Capitan? Capitan? Lind?
Aye.
Lind?
Yeah.
Ekman?
Yeah.
Hagan?
Nope.
Could I ask one question?
Yeah.
When is the last time that the rates were adjusted?
Oh, gosh.
That time short term was adjusted was 2015. The long term in the economy, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can
About
find
the
out.
same time, yeah.
Just seems like
Okay.
a 30%, just seems like a big jump.
It's only
for-
7% a year.
Yeah. Okay, I.
And
Hagan, all right.
thank you. Moving on to item 10, received communication from FAA regarding AIP Grant 51.
Okay, this is the second amendment. So Stacy and I did accept this grant increase back on August 18th. Took the maximum obligation for Grant 51, which is for the cargo apron, from $2,329,420 to $2,500,248. It was $170,828 increase that we had no idea that we were going to get until we got the email. So
It doesn't require a motion,
just,
no.
yep.
Okay. All right, any questions about that?
Take the money.
Moving on to number 11, received communication from JP Development, Fargo Jet Center.
Okay, Darren Hall is here. I don't know if Mr. Sweeney's online. So the Airport Authority owns some hangars in the admin building in the South General Aviation area. Basically this facility here. And this large building here is split in two. The Army National Guard occupies one half. And UPS had this half, now they vacated, so then Fargo Jet Center has this for other customers. So it's this facility here. That lease was due to expire on February of 2023. And because of some complications with the Army Guard, which we had found out, I guess, back in February, and it's even more so now, they have no other place to go. And the board had talked about putting this up for bid, so taking proposals. Kevin Reibach is here from Group 6, which is Mr. Office Facilities here. Has a strong interest in one or both of the hangars that are there. And we thought that we'd be able to put that up for proposals this fall, but really, the Army Guard is there, and of course, they wouldn't want the Army Guard as a tenant. They have no other place to go. So Jim is asking for a 3-year extension. I think the Army Guard had requested a 5-year extension to that agreement, which puts it out to February of 2026. They currently have a 2% escalator per year. That would continue through this extension if you so would approve. But you know, Kevin is here. We chatted back in February after we met with the Guard. The Guard had been working with a attendant on the airfield to have someone build a facility for them that they could lease for up to 10 years because they're going to expand and get bigger, so there'll be more helicopters here until such time that they build a new facility up at the new operational readiness center off County 20, just west of Drain 10 or west of the Armed Forces Reserve Center. It appears that those plans have somewhat been delayed and they're really stuck to our South G area. So as much as I'd like to put it out for bid to see what's out there in the market, it's really to protect the Army Guard because they have no place to go. Their alternative would be to vacate and go back to Bismarck or Grand Forks or some of the locations. So I don't know, Darren, if you have anything else to add, or Kevin, if you have any concerns on behalf of your ownership.
Well, so
Up here, sorry.
Kevin Reibach, General Manager, Group 6. So right now, the north hangar is empty, and the guard has the facility, the hangar next to us, plus the guard shack. Would it be possible, if the National Guard only needs one hangar that they're currently, can the other one hangar come up for lease? And we have the chance to bid on that. Split that lease, so you'd have a hangar and the guard shack for the guard, and then the other hangar would come up for bid.
So you're talking the one closest to you that the guard's in now?
That would be the best situation, because I'm sure if the guard, if it was that way, the guard wouldn't want us traveling in front of their hangar.
I don't know what the guard has in it, I guess that's a guard hall question, but.
Yeah, I can talk to that, I guess. You know, on the first hangar, the one furthest to the north, is hangar 3. And on any given day, we'll have 2 to 4 airplanes in that hangar. Some of them are our own, which is overflow from our hangars up north. And then a couple of base tenant airplanes. And then hangar 4 is where the Army Guard uses that hangar. And they're at capacity, so we've been discussing with them about the opportunity of providing more space. But until we gain our new space in our new hangars next fall, we still use that space as overflow. So it's not empty per se, certainly being used.
So you're saying the guard, because the increase in the number of helicopters could need additional space?
Yeah, they're requesting that. They're requesting additional space now. We've been having discussions with them, and would be interested in taking that hangar or expanding into that hangar as soon as it would become available.
That changes things.
What was Group 6's time horizon for theirs?
Well, about 5 years ago.
Or more, yeah.
We are at capacity. When all our aircraft are in Fargo, we actually have one out sitting outside. We don't have room for everything. We understand the importance of having the guard in Fargo. They always have said that, hey, we're gonna build up there, we're gonna have someone else build us a hangar. Now, we may not bring in more helicopters. Let's, if we can get a firm commitment by the guard that, yeah, they do need both hangars, then it is what it is. We understand a 3-year extension on it, but if they build something else. If they don't need it, we would like it to come out to bid.
I agree with you 100%. When will you
Mr.
know?
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, it's Jim Sweeney, and I just want to let the board know that we do have correspondence in recent days from the North Dakota Army Guard saying that obviously they want to extend their lease and are extending, interested in extending the lease and beyond extending into the other space. So we really want to protect that space for them, especially for the short term of just 3 years to see what can be accomplished and let the Guard grow into their position. Let me also state, when there is space available in any hangar, we're always willing to assist anybody at the airport to house an aircraft for a short or long term.
So
Thank
Jim,
you,
this is Sean. So the Army Guard would not be able to co-occupy that hangar with civilian aircraft. Is that correct? Does this have to be exclusive to them?
Yeah, I think so. You're right. That's a good point, Sean. When they're in there, it's theirs.
So until your new facilities are built up north, which gives you the opportunity to move aircraft from the South GA to the North GA, you really can't offer that hangar to them for additional helicopters until the civilians have vacated the premises, correct?
No, I mean, it's like Darren said, it's varying. We're swapping airplanes in and out of that south all the time. Is that what you meant?
No, I meant the Army Guard's occupancy has to be exclusive. They
That
can't
is
share.
correct.
Okay, all right. So until such time that you have space for the aircraft you currently are storing down there, it's not an option for the Army Guard, and maybe that will change within the next year when your new facility opens?
Yes.
All right. I guess I didn't realize they were interested in the other hangar this soon, but was the desire of the board.
Well, first of all, I appreciate Group 6 understanding that the accommodating the military at Hector is important. We appreciate that. I think we have to do whatever to accommodate them and keep their mission here. Number one, if it is not a cost to us or an expense to us, and it allows our ability to grow and maintain our facility, I think we should try and accommodate.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the 3-year extension of the South General Aviation hangars.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any comments, questions, concerns by the board online?
And we can find.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question for Mr. Sweeney. When is the completion date of your new facility?
More than a year from now, so we're thinking optimistically about Thanksgiving next year.
Next year, okay. Okay, yeah, I'm just I'm concerned that if we were to not allow this, that the Army Guard would have no place to go. So, no other questions for me.
Thank you. No questions? Roll call.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Yes.
Heckman.
Aye.
Hingham.
Aye. Moving on to number 12, communication from Dave Stahl, Fargo Aircraft Maintenance.
His limited FBO agreement expires at the end of this month, and he's requested a 5-year extension with some modifications that Kinnard Aviation, doing business as Red River Aero, which was Lyle Anvik, is no longer in business. He sold his aircraft to Titan Machinery. That could change. He may get an aircraft and go back into business at some time in the future, but at this point, Dave is paying us 1.5% of his gross revenue, and currently 2 cents per gallon on a fuel flowage fee, which I'll recommend changing here at an upcoming meeting. But I'd recommend your approval of a 5-year extension.
Motion, please.
I so move.
Second, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, roll call.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Yes.
Heckman.
Aye.
Hingham.
Aye. Move on to number 14.
All right, so we lost a couple of airfield maintenance specialist 3s, or what we call equipment operator 3s. One left us for another employer, the city. Another has a family situation, is moving back to St. Louis to take care of his mother. We're down a couple. So our crew has interviewed for the positions, and surprisingly enough, we've had some pretty good interest in those positions. Jordan was part of that interview process. I don't know if Andrew is not here. But so obviously we're going to replace the 2 airfield maintenance specialist 3s. One of the other folks that they had interviewed has some experience. They don't have their CDL, but as we're coming into the winter season where we typically hire employees for the winter ops and so forth, we just decided, and the staff has recommended, that we add another airfield maintenance specialist 2. That's someone that can operate heavy equipment, but they don't have a commercial driver's license at this time, but they certainly can get one. We did add a equipment airfield maintenance specialist 2 last year. It was one of the folks that filled in as a firefighter for us for a while. He's come over to the airfield side, and who knows, maybe someday he'll go back to being a firefighter. So the request would be to add an additional airfield maintenance 2 specialists, full-time, year-round. The challenge that we're having is finding employees to come in just for the winter season. So typically in October through April, we have people that come and work 40 hours a week that just are here for the snow season. Finding them is more and more difficult each time. So I think in answer to that, and talking with staff, adding an additional equipment airfield maintenance specialist 2 will hopefully alleviate that problem of finding employees this fall. So the request would be to add an airfield maintenance specialist 2 to the employment roster.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is this where we adjusted the equipment operators? Will this have that same adjustment to it, or is this on the pay scale?
That's on the pay scale. So if the person starts in step 1, it's $47,568 a year. That included the mid-year adjustment that we gave at the 5%. There is talk in the community as the diversion authority is moving forward with finding that sweet spot for their hourly rate. With cast, everybody's looking at maybe another adjustment coming up this fall yet, as well as a cost of living on the first of the year. Equipment operators are extremely hard to find at this point. And based on the interview that Jordan and the staff went through, we think we found someone that hopefully can help us out and get them on the payroll and avoid trying to find someone at the 11th hour when we got a snowstorm coming.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second to add another employee to the ranks and help maintain our facility. Any questions, conversation, concerns? Anybody online? Eric, Jim?
No questions. My question is more of a question about, it's more of a conversation, Sean. Like, if we're gonna add another cost of living benefit and we're gonna add another employee and we're gonna add, the cost of increase for the insurance, we're gonna have to put pencil to paper and find out how much our budget can support, going forward. So I'm gonna just make that as a general comment. I don't have any other questions though.
In our 2023 budget, that did include an airfield maintenance specialist 3 and an additional full-time building attendant as well. So we do have that latitude within the budget that's proposed now and for next year.
Okay.
It's built in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No questions, comments? Roll call.
Cosgriff.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Mangan.
Aye.
Jeff and Terry, who wants to go first? Did you flip a coin?
He's pointing at me, so. All right, I'll keep it quick.
Mike?
No. Two things, the access control project, I think I had mentioned last time, Sun Electric had installed approximately half the conduit. There was 25,000 feet. They weren't gonna get another shipment until the end of September. Sun Electric was just called me up last week, however, and said that they were able to find a different supplier. So they're supposed to be here this week or first part of next week to start the second half of the conduit installation. The East Economy lot, I don't believe as the last meeting it had started yet. If you had driven up this morning, we saw basically all they've done so far is taken all the topsoil off the site and stockpiled it. Master Construction's doing all the underground. They were supposed to be here last Monday. As of Friday, and I guess, and I confirmed again this morning, they're supposed to start either today or tomorrow. And I just have some concern, I guess, them starting so late because their work is basically the critical path to move the project forward. So I told Border States if we don't see movement from Master this week, we got to come up with a different plan because every day this time of year that's delayed really jeopardizes the overall completion date. So moving up against winter. So any questions on those
The only other thing I'll add is we're still working with the FAA on a scope of work for the project to replace the South GA concrete, add the North GA concrete that Jet Center needs around their hangars, and then to expand the West Terminal ramp out here for the East expansion. So that scope of work is still pending, and hopefully we'll have it by the next meeting.
Correct. I had the scope of works for the North and South GA are approved by the FAA. I have the fees put together. I need to get them out to the individual that'll do the IFE, and then hopefully we have that completed for the next meeting. I still need to get the scope of work for the expansion.
So the independent
but
fee,
it'll be coming.
yeah, so another engineer looks at the fee that they're proposing and either concurs or not concurs, and that's required by the FAA.
Correct.
So we'll get that done. Any conversations with Lafarge or any of the cement suppliers?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So I had, my neighbor actually is I guess a sales representative for Lafarge. So I had spoken to him the other day and just, I mentioned to him that, with the work that the diversion, with the work for the diversion, and then we have these 3 large projects just here at the airport, let alone everything else that the city of Fargo or the DOT has, what he sees forecasted for next year. And his opinion is, it'll be better than this year, but it's still going to be very tight.
So what I had offered up to do is just to, from a meat and hunt standpoint, is just to determine a volume of concrete that we expect on our projects for next year, and then supply that to him, so that he can take that information and just, work it into their logistics on how they, deliver products to all their different areas around the country. So he said that is very beneficial, just to know ahead of time, what's coming down the pipeline. So I'm working on that right now, just to give them as best information as possible.
So I'd heard yesterday that there's a number of state DOTs around the country that are gonna forego any concrete reconstruction in 2023 because of the cement shortage. There's home builders here in town that aren't able to get cement to do foundations because of the priority of where the concrete's going. That's already happening. So what makes me really nervous is we go out and do a bid and then we, commit to the South GA, North GA, and we'll have to somehow prioritize. I think the South GA is our priority in case there's a cement shortage. I haven't talked to Bob Walton with the DOT here, but I know the state of South Dakota stopped their I-90 construction. They can't get cement products, so yeah, it's.
Yeah, and he says just a culmination of all kinds of variables as far as manufacturing. He said that the demand is just astronomically high, and just the logistics of moving around the country, that kind of thing, is just leading to this tight supply chain issue. So, but he said, as an example, a typical year they import cement from foreign countries at a volume of about I think it's 250,000 cubic yards. This year it's like tripled that they import just to meet demand here in the States. So.
Terry. He's got some good news.
Well, that's scary because we're supposed to pour concrete this week. So we had a little bit of a rain delay last week, and they were supposed to pour the slab for the exit plaza last week, but they're planning on getting it done part of this week and then starting steel erection next week. So a little rain delay, about 4 days.
Checkpoint still has a few minor things like before. The baseboard that goes around is still on back order. I think the painting was all done as far as we know. They fixed all that, so it's working out well. Yeah, as long as they can find staff out there, I think we're 30-some TSA employees short here, so.
Really?
It's
30?
There's our 31, 90-some in the state. Much better.
Wow.
The only other things I've got is the request for qualifications for architectural services for the proposed east terminal expansion. Hopefully start running in the form this week. We'll advertise for 3 weeks and then get those proposals. The next meeting I'll propose an increase in the fuel flowage fee. I don't know, I've been here since '91, it's been 2 cents. Looking at doubling that to 4 cents per gallon. And then we received notice this week, actually our guys had noticed that the guard was taking out a whole bunch of trees up north around the Armed Forces Reserve Center. And I had no idea what they were doing. Oh gosh, it's north of here. This is the Armed Forces Reserve Center. Anyway, they're putting in a new driveway up here that comes out to 31st Street, the road that we own, so I can send that to you if you're interested. But if you see activity up there, hear of anything, the guard's putting in a road. And MBN, I guess we didn't have any notification of it, but the contract's on the way and they're proceeding, so. The only other things I mentioned earlier on the concession relief, that we'll have to do a formal resolution of our distribution methodology, which the FAA has already approved, thanks to Brian Page at Lead and Hunt, to work through, I don't know, 3-4 months of iterations with the FAA. There's gonna be, Skydine, the restaurant, is gonna receive just under $229,000, so they get credited each month and we do the drawdowns. So there's some pretty big numbers that are in here. Some of the car rental agencies benefit as well. Enterprise, National Alamo, they're owned by the Montana Rent-A-Car group. They declined. They didn't want to participate and they declined at all airports around the country. So whatever share that they would have gotten would be distributed to the other eligible tenants that are here. Our gift shop is right around $94,000 and so forth. But I'll get these out to you now. I just got these here the other day, and we'll pass a resolution to distribute those congestion relief grants, so, starting October 1st. Grand Forks Airport is closed to commercial traffic as of yesterday, so we'll probably see a little bit of activity here. They're closed for a week or two because of runway reconstruction, so that's happening. You probably heard that on the news today. That's all I have.
Anything else for the order? Nothing? Meeting adjourned?